Dokmus is a pretty abstract and pretty unusual game. It combines different mechanics that, well, I had not seen before. In particular, in this game you have a card drafting mechanic that you may have seen before in games such as Sushi Go, combined with pretty much spatial puzzles, one puzzle nested inside the other. I have to say, Dokmus, this is a weird font. The first time I saw a picture of the cover online, I thought it meant Dorkus. I swear that's what it looked like. Luckily enough, that's not the case. Dokmus is played on a modular board that is made of 8 square pieces that can be combined in various ways, in different combinations, but the basic shape of the board at the beginning is going to be this one, like a 3x3 area with an empty spot in the middle. That's important because during the game there are game effects that will allow you to move tiles, to move terrain. This is a very shaky world. When you move a tile, you move it in a straight line to reach an empty spot. But interesting enough, and this is very important, when you move tiles away, you can also jump over other ones. So basically, if I'm using the effect, which we'll see later, that allows me to move a tile, the empty spot that must be reached is this one, and I can reach it with this one, or with this one, with that one, or with this one, or with that one. And that can get a little awkward because you will see there will be a lot of stuff here. So when you move these tiles, especially over other tiles, you need to make sure that you don't do what I just did. Otherwise everything falls off, but that you're pretty delicate and careful. That you just do it very carefully. What you do in this game, again, is to draft cards that will allow you to use special effects, and after that you receive 3 tokens each turn. You have enough tokens to play for exactly 8 turns, which is how long the game is, and so the number of tokens that you have also represents your turn track. When players don't have any tokens, then the game is over, because each turn you will use exactly 3 of your tokens. Now, I mentioned cards. So there are these 5 cards here that are available to the players. Each turn there will be a first player that has this token here from a previous turn, and that player is the first one that gets to choose. For example, and that player takes all of these cards, looks at them, and then secretly selects one of them. Suppose I'm the first player and decide to take that one. Then I give the deck of tiles to the next player in clockwise order, and that player chooses a tile, say this one. Alright, then the next player chooses a tile, which is going to be this one. The next player wants this tile here. Once we are done selecting, we reveal our tiles, and the number that you see here indicates the order in which we go. So now we resolve the turn starting from this tile here, and also this player will take the first player's token, so this player will go first when it's the time to choose cards next turn. So this player goes first, then we have this player, then this player, and that player. When it is your turn, you can... So this determines the order in which you go, but then also gives you special abilities, with the exception of this one. All it does is it makes you go first this turn to act, and next turn to select. As for the actions that the other cards let you do, this is the one that allows you to move tiles, to move terrain tiles. This one lets you move a token from where it is to an adjacent legal space. This one lets you rotate a tile, and sometimes you have to do a little bit of work to rotate the thing. Of course, you may say, well, you can just leave some space, but actually it's kind of important that they are adjacent to one another, next to one another usually, because you will use your tokens to form chains that may go from one tile to the other, and just more intuitive if they're right there. But that means that you have to do a little bit of adjusting when you're moving and rotating, and then you put everything back in. There is this mechanical element here which is a little cumbersome, but that's the price you have to pay. to play the game. And then the card number 5, you go last, but you can choose either to move a token or to rotate a terrain tile or to move a terrain tile. Once you take your card, you will use your 3 tokens, and again, as you use them, you can also activate your effect. As for how to use the tokens, all you do with the tokens is to place them on the board or to sacrifice them. That is, you place them in a specific area outside of the board. They're out of the game for now, but you will get to score them at the end of the game. When you place your tokens, what happens next depends on the terrain. Different terrains have different abilities. Open terrain, well, doesn't do anything. Mountains, you cannot place there. These are temples. These are small temples. These are red ones, and the yellow ones are major temples. By the way, this is how you score points in the game. You're trying to connect to temples. You cannot place tokens on temples themselves, totally legal. However, you can use temples as connectors. That is, suppose that I was building a chain here, and I get here, and I get here. I cannot place, oopsie. You don't see that. Here you go. You cannot place one on this temple here, but then the next time that I place one, I can place it here to the other side. Or we can use that temple, and it's the same thing. So they act as connectors. You can like jump to the other side. Forest. These forests are so scary, to enter. So to enter a forest, you sacrifice one of your tokens for that turn. You place it out of the game, and then you can enter a forest. But that only happens when you enter a forest. Once you are in, then you can move, that is, add more tokens within that forest without sacrificing anything. As for waters, these waters are so scary to enter. So you have to sacrifice a token to enter, or say to cross a waterway. But then you do not place a token on the waterway itself. You place it in a legal place adjacent. You're navigating. So I sacrifice a token, and from here I could, for example, place a token here or here. Oh, but not there. Nothing is diagonal in this game. Volcans are tricky because you can place there, right? And for example, from there, then I can place one here to connect there. But at the end of the turn, the volcan dude is removed, is eliminated. Now remember, there is one of the, not one, actually two of the gods will let you move tokens. This one solid dust, this one is one of the options. So sometimes because you want to get somewhere, for example, for whatever reasons, yeah, from here, I want to go here, then I place one here, then I use the effect to move it before it is burned by the volcano, because the volcano effect only applies at the end of the round. And so that's how it works. And again, the landscape also changes. That means that different pieces may get connected differently. So that waterway now may allow you to go in different directions, different places. Oh, one type of terrain that I haven't covered is the ruins. So when you place a piece on the ruin, they cannot be removed or moved from there for any reason. And also what you do is you immediately get to use one of the divine effects. Move a token, rotate a tile, move a tile. So this is pretty much what happens. So you will, as I said, so as you can see, you will move from one area to the other. That is very important. So from here, I'll go here, then I'll go here because I want to connect there. Then somebody starts moving tiles, and now that chain is broken, which may open new opportunities for me. Hooray, I'm gonna start placing this here and this thing here. Then for whatever reason, someone rotates this tile and moves this other tile here. So now I'm interested, maybe there's another opportunity here. And I'm gonna go here, sacrifice a token to enter there. and connect to that temple, and so on and so forth. So you start with a single chain, but you'll end up with a bunch of different groups, as you see here. But again, precisely because moving from edge to edge is so important, I find it that it's really important that the tiles are actually adjacent, so you can see immediately and exactly what is available to you or not. And trust me, the board can be pretty chaotic. Hey, where are you guys going? Hey, friends! So things will go around the board a lot. This means that sometimes the board is not, when it's your turn, the board is not what you thought it'd be. It looks pretty different. So sometimes you do have to do planning right there. And probably if you're a seasoned gamer, you start worrying that that militarizes paralysis, which may be one of the dangers of this game. However, there may be cases where your interests are all and entirely played inside a single tile. Suppose I'm there and I want to connect to, I want to cover that ruin, I want to connect to those temples, and I got there, then you can do whatever you want, turn them, flip them, move it around. I plan for what to do for my next turn, which is 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. I would have been able to use that ability, etc., etc. So there are cases where you're able to plan your turn ahead when other people are playing, and please recommend players to do so. So that prevents paralysis. So you're able to plan your next turn, and it's completely bulletproof. Other times you're planning, and there are chances that the board will look still the same, and then you'll be able to pull it off. And if not, then at that point you calculate your new strategy. Other times are like, I don't know, I don't see anything interesting here. Let's hope that they mess things up for me or they change things around, and so I'll be able to elaborate a strategy. That is to say, there is a considerable number of turns in which you'll be able to execute a strategy that you have been planning in your head when other people will play, and that will definitely help, if not completely prevent, analysis paralysis. The game continues for 8 turns until everybody has used all of their tokens, and at the point you score points. You score points for the number of temples that you are touching. It doesn't matter how many tokens you have there. This or this, the temple is still scoring the same amount. So it's the number of temples, not the number of tokens that are touching them. For each small temple that you manage to connect to, that is to have some token adjacent to, you will score 2 victory points. Each large major temple is 3 victory points. Now this is interesting. All temples, if you are able to connect to all temples on a tile, like that would be the case, I connected to all temples, I scored 8 extra points for each tile in which I connected to all temples. Then you score points for how many map tiles you have discovered you have connected to temples on. So if I connected to a temple here, and a temple here, and a temple here, and one here, then I connected to temples on 4 tiles, and then you look at this little player right here, and then tells you how many points. So if I connected to temples on 4 tiles, I get 10 points. If you're able to connect to temples on every tile in the game, which is 8, that's huge. That's a huge load of points. I like the fact that basically the 2 ways of getting a ton of extra points are mutually exclusive, because if you spend a lot of resources to connect to every temple on 1 tile, chances are you won't be able to connect many tiles. If you want to be present on many tiles, chances are you won't be able to connect to all temples on a single tile. You also score points for each ruins. Each ruin gives you a victory point. Then remember, I said you sacrifice tokens during the game. You place them in a separate area when you enter a waterway, when you enter a forest, or simply because you don't know what to do with them. Rare, but I guess that may happen. Then you sacrifice them, and the sacrifice tokens will score you points at the end of the game. You check who is the player that sacrificed the most, and you adjudicate points for, first place, second, third, and fourth when it comes to the number of tokens that have been sacrificed. put together all of the points the players have collected for every source, and at the point the player with the highest total is the biggest Dokmus of the game, or the biggest Dokmus of the game, or in any case, the winner of Dokmus. So, Dokmus, I like this game, I like gameplay. I have a couple of things I don't like very much about the production. When you move those tiles around, those wooden tokens are gonna move around, they're gonna get out of where they were, you have to reconstruct the situation, they may fall over, they look weird if they are oriented in different ways. I think there would have been several ways of preventing these things. A friend of mine said, what if they had pressed the tiles in a way of making ridges around each square, sort of like a waffle type of surface. That, I guess, would have made the game more expensive, but that would work. Then the pieces wouldn't move around when you're moving the tile. Another way, of course, would have been to have pieces that were not like narrow and tall. That is the wobbliest type of piece that you can have, but by the contrary, large and short. Wooden discs wouldn't move nearly as much as these pieces do. And the game is abstract, it's non-thematic, so I don't see why it had to be triangles rather than discs. Also, the game as is, the tokens are coded only by color, red triangles or green triangles, so I believe that colorblind players are going to have a hard time playing the game. And especially when people start moving your token around, your tokens are, well, your tiles around with the tokens on them, you really have to make sure that you know where your gaming pieces ended up being. And so I don't think you can do that very well right now if you cannot tell colors apart. Would have been easy to code the playing pieces by using, you know, wooden discs, wooden squares, wooden triangles, wooden hexagons, or stars. Very easy. Anyways, aside from that, I really like gameplay. It is simple in terms of rules, intricate, complex, and full of nice, interesting puzzles from the point of view of gameplay, of the execution. This is definitely a simple game with complex gameplay, simple rules, and a lot to think about. But at the same time, not to the point that the game became overwhelming, that I got a headache. If nothing else, because again, there were cases where what I was going to do was obvious to me. But that, if that was the case every turn, then the game would be trivial, would be boring. Case in which, okay, I want to do this thing, and I'm gonna do it, and no one is gonna stop me. Other cases where I'm trying to do one thing, and now you turn the tile, and all of a sudden, I have to reconsider everything or something. And I like the fact that you are trying to commit to a strategy. Early on, you'll probably need to choose if you want to go for connecting every temple on one or two tiles, possibly two tiles, or go everywhere. But you still get a chance of not altering entirely, but of going a little bit out of your way to be able to do different things. Because when I'm connecting, I want to connect all the temples on a single tile, I'm still going to try to keep some people on an edge, because then maybe when you move my tile around or you rotate it, then by simply adding one, now all of a sudden I'm building on another tile, or use my moving ability to do that kind of stuff. So I like the fact that if you commit to every temple on a tile, you can still try to create some presence. If you are going for presence on every tile, most likely you won't be able to connect to everything on a single tile. But then you can go for ruins. You can go for a ton. You can go for a ton of temples, a little bit everywhere. So I like the fact that there are several paths to victory, and we saw that really the game is seems to me well balanced, well tweaked, well regulated in that sense, that it is possible to win by going for concentration or by going for dispersion. And I like that. And just gameplay is so simple. Again, it's so obvious in terms of what you can do, the moves that you have, and so non-obvious in terms of strategy. But again, as I said, sometimes it didn't give me a brain burn as much as I thought it would. precisely because some turns are easy and some turns are challenging and some turns are in middle of the road. So it has a nice pace. I'm able to take a break. Yeah, I'm gonna do that thing. Now I can think about something else, take a break, maybe even chat a little bit, and then all of a sudden becomes, I wouldn't say hardcore, but mid-core. All of a sudden, there's a lot of meat. Again, if you're playing with 4 players, make sure that you know your players. You're not playing with that player that is notorious for his or her tendency towards analysis paralysis. The potential is there, but it's not one of those games that forces you. If a player wants to take into account every possible variable, then the player will annoy the heck out of everybody. But there are games in which that is kind of again avoidable. In this game, it is avoidable. You can take it easy and still do very well by you know, planning ahead as much as you can, not obsessing about things when the situation at the beginning of your turn is not what you expected. Go with the flow a little bit, and then that's cool. There are moments that the game can be a little confrontational because I remove a tile, I rotate a tile just to annoy the heck out of you. But again, the board can change so much that people can then still come back from that. Oh, you rotated me that way, that's fine. Next turn I'm gonna slide, and thanks to the new rotation, I have an excellent new opportunity there. And in a certain sense, yes, you will have cases where you see that a player does something against somebody else just to affect that player. But you only have 8 turns. It's a limited number of moves that you have. You're likely not gonna go out of your way too much just to be the attacker, just to attack other people directly. Most likely, if you are annoying somebody else, if you're getting in somebody else's way, it is a side effect, a byproduct of a strategy that you're pursuing for your own goals in order for you to score a lot of points. And that also takes some of the attrition away, some of the bad blood that may potentially happen. I don't think that's gonna be much. It doesn't feel all that in your face. Take that. There's a little bit of that element, but again, it's like, look, I need to connect to that temple, so I have 8. Now I have a presence on 8 tiles, and sorry, whatever is your name. In real life, I would know your name, but now I'm talking about a hypothetical gamer. I don't know what's her or his name is. Sorry, my friend, if now I have broken your chain and now these pieces that you have there are not very useful for you for now. So there is an element of interaction, both again when you move things around and even just when you place things. So if you connect, for example, to a temple and you connect by occupying all the spaces that are available, then other people have to go somewhere. There's a way of indirect or sometimes indirect interaction, but not to the point that the game becomes hostile, but enough that the game doesn't feel like a multiplayer solo. So I really like gameplay. Again, precisely because I enjoyed it very much, I was annoyed that I was distracted by having to make sure that all the pieces were where they were supposed to be after you move or rotate a tile. The pieces fall off, the triangles, if one looks like this and one looks like that, I'm annoyed. I need to make them all like this or all like this. I don't think I'm OCD. Maybe I'm a part-time OCD. When I play this game and a couple of other ones, I'm like, the orientation is not right. The penguin is facing the triangle is facing the wrong direction. Small little annoyances that I had due to production, but if nothing else, the fact that I cared about those because they were getting in the way of gameplay is evidence that I really enjoyed gameplay. I enjoyed the Dokmus a lot. Despite all of my little grievances, it is a really good game, really strong gameplay. It is simple, so you can play it with casual gamers. I don't know about that. The rules are simple enough that you could play with casual gamers because, however, the strategy is pretty subtle and has a lot going on that may overwhelm. They may overwhelm newer casual players, so maybe it works better with serious players that want a challenge but not a devastating brain burn. A challenge and an interesting way of interacting with the game system and with other players without then being overwhelmed and without being completely exhausted at the end. Dokmus, an abstract game with interesting mechanics and very fun and entertaining gameplay.